The Amazing World of Gumball erupted onto Cartoon Network with unprecedented creativity and meta humor that captivated audiences worldwide. Created by Ben Bacalé and premiering in 2011, the show blended multiple animation styles and delivered sharp social commentary with its unique brand of self-awareness. However, what if this groundbreaking series actually planted the seeds for Cartoon Network's eventual decline? This theory explores how Gumball's revolutionary approach, while brilliant, may have inadvertently contributed to the network's downfall. The Amazing World of Gumball wasn't just a cartoon, it was a cartoon about cartoons. Its meta-commentary on television tropes, network practices, and even animation itself created a new standard that became increasingly difficult for other shows to match. Episodes like The Money, which directly addressed network budgeting issues through degrading animation quality, or The Signal, which played with the fourth wall by incorporating transmission glitches, demonstrated a level of self-awareness that was revolutionary. This meta approach did two things simultaneously. It elevated audience expectations while making it harder for subsequent shows to innovate without seeming derivative. Once viewers experienced Gumball's willingness to deconstruct the very medium it existed within, more straightforward narratives began to feel simplistic by comparison. Perhaps the most subversive aspect of Gumball was its willingness to critique the very system that produced it. The show repeatedly mocked corporate culture, consumerism, and media conglomerates, including thinly veiled references to Cartoon Network itself and its parent company. Episodes like The Void, which suggested that failed TV concepts are erased from existence, or The Blame, which satirized moral panic about cartoon violence, served as pointed criticisms of network television politics. By allowing such internal criticism to air, Cartoon Network executives inadvertently legitimized critiques of their own business model. When a flagship show consistently jokes about the corporation's shortcomings, it becomes increasingly difficult to maintain brand authority. Gumball effectively dismantled the fourth wall between creators and executives, exposing the corporate machinery to public scrutiny. Gumball set an impossibly high bar for creativity. Its mixed media approach combined 2D animation, 3D CGI, stop-motion live action, and various other techniques, creating a visual language unlike anything seen before on children's television. The show turned technical and budgetary constraints into creative opportunities, transforming limitation into innovation. This created what might be called the innovation trap. Subsequent shows were forced to either attempt similar technical feats, often with smaller budgets, or be perceived as visually conservative. As networks began to favor safer, more easily producible content with consistent animation styles, the creative experimentation that defined Cartoon Network's golden era began to wane. Gumball fundamentally altered the relationship between Cartoon Network and its audience in ways that would prove difficult to sustain. By creating content that operated on multiple levels of sophistication, offering slapstick for younger viewers while delivering nuanced social commentary for older ones, the show accelerated what might be called the audience maturation effect. Viewers who grew up with Gumball developed more sophisticated media literacy at younger ages. Children exposed to its meta-commentary and fourth wall breaking became more discerning consumers, less easily satisfied by formulaic content. This created a viewership that increasingly demanded the intellectual stimulation Gumball provided, but network executives failed to recognize this evolution, instead retreating to more simplistic programming formulas. This growing disconnect between audience expectations and network offerings created a vacuum that streaming services were all too eager to fill. As viewers who had been intellectually nurtured by shows like Gumball aged into teens and young adults, many abandoned traditional cable networks entirely, seeking content that would challenge them in similar ways. The data supported this exodus. During and after Gumball's run, Cartoon Network saw a steady decline in viewership among the 10 to 14 demographic, precisely the group that had been most intellectually stimulated by Gumball's sophisticated approach. Rather than interpreting this as a sign to create more mature, challenging content for this aging audience, executives instead doubled down on attracting younger viewers with less demanding programming. This strategic miscalculation reflected a fundamental misunderstanding of what Gumball had accomplished. It hadn't just entertained an audience, it had educated one. By failing to grow with this more sophisticated viewership, Cartoon Network effectively surrendered an entire generation of animation enthusiasts to competing platforms and media, creating a loyalty gap that would prove impossible to bridge. While critically acclaimed, Gumball presented executives with a paradox. Shows with sophisticated meta-humor and social commentary might attract critical praise but not necessarily deliver the consistent viewership numbers that traditional, more accessible programming could achieve. The show's complex jokes and references often flew over younger viewers' heads while delighting older audiences, creating an uncertain demographic profile. This led to a fundamental identity crisis for Cartoon Network. Should it pursue critically acclaimed, boundary-pushing content like Gumball, or focus on more marketable, merchandise-friendly properties? The network increasingly chose the latter, gradually shifting towards safer content formulas after Gumball demonstrated the commercial risks of creative experimentation. Gumball's run 2011 to 2019 coincided with the rise of streaming platforms, which fundamentally changed how animated content was consumed and valued. The show's episodic nature, while perfectly suited for traditional broadcast television, didn't necessarily optimize for binge-watching metrics that streaming services prioritized. As Cartoon Network struggled to adapt to this changing landscape, the complex production requirements of shows like Gumball became increasingly difficult to justify. The network began favoring content that could be produced more quickly and efficiently for multi-platform distribution, leading to a decline in the ambitious production values that once defined its brand. While this theory positions Gumball as a catalyst for Cartoon Network's decline, the true responsibility lies not with the show itself but with executive responses to it. Instead of embracing the creative blueprint Gumball established, network leadership interpreted its success too narrowly. Rather than seeing audience appreciation for innovation as a signal to invest more deeply in creative freedom, corporate decision-makers increasingly prioritize safe content formulas and merchandising potential. The real tragedy isn't that Gumball was too revolutionary, it's that its revolution wasn't fully embraced by those with the power to build upon it. The show demonstrated that audiences craved intelligent, multi-layered content that respected their intelligence, but this lesson was largely abandoned in favor of risk-averse programming strategies. The Amazing World of Gumball didn't kill Cartoon Network, it exposed both the network's greatest potential and its fundamental vulnerabilities. By creating a show that could simultaneously entertain children while critiquing the very system that produced it, Gumball set a standard that the network ultimately chose not to sustain. The decline of Cartoon Network following Gumball's era represents not the failure of creative ambition, but of corporate courage. In demonstrating what animation could be at its most innovative and subversive, Gumball highlighted just how rarely networks are willing to truly commit to creative risk-taking. The real cause of Cartoon Network's decline wasn't that Gumball pushed too far, it's that the network didn't push far enough in following its revolutionary path.